organization created by Ignatius of Loyola, and they take extreme vows to do whatever the Pope needs, including war, and which includes killing, and includes subterfuge and espionage and subversion, and whatever the Pope needs, that's what the Jesuits did. But they were very militant, and we could go into great detail about that. But the point is that even to this very day, they take an extra vow, and the vow is to the Pope through the Black Pope, or through what the Superior General of the Society of Jesus. The Society of Jesus are the Jesuits. The Superior General is the head of the Jesuits, and because they wear black robes, he is called the Black Pope. So you have the White Pope, Francis, and all the popes are white. They like to wear white. And then you have the Black Pope, which is the head of the Jesuits. Now, never before in history did the Jesuits take over the Curia. 100%, all Jesuits. And now we have a Jesuit Pope. And then that Jesuit Pope, as we predicted, would take his good buddy from Venezuela, Pope Arturo Sosa, whatever his last name is, Abascal or whatever. Anyway, the head of the Jesuits, the Jesuit Superior General, Father or Superior General Arturo Sosa, he was the right-hand man to Pope Francis in South America, in Venezuela, and because of their actions, and also in many other countries in South America, thousands of people died. And this is well known. And somehow after they elect a Pope, Benedict, Ratzinger, who was a former Nazi stormtrooper, then they elect a Pope who is literally known for being part of thousands of people dying because of him turning traitor on them, and working directly with Father Arturo. So Father Arturo was put in charge of the Jesuits. So now you have a Jesuit white Pope and his direct right-hand man, his number one lieutenant, as the head of the Jesuits. And the only thing left to be complete in that would be what we predicted would happen. And in our intelligence reports, we predicted that would happen. We'd also predicted some things we're going to talk about now, which is that this Pope, if you really want to call him that, Pope Francis, took over the Knights of Malta. He came and he made some big deal about the Chancellor of Knights of Malta sending condoms out to Africa and Asia. And so that really wasn't the issue. And so they fired that Chancellor. And so then the Pope intervened with this perfect opportunity and made the head of the Knights of...
Which is interesting, because if you distribute condoms, you're trying to lower the birth rate, but at the same time probably prevent births so that the lizards don't get fed, to put it in a nutshell. So if you lower the birth rates, children aren't born to feed the reptilians. So that's probably why this chancellor was distributing out condoms to prevent the torture, in other words. The torture of humanity. Probably. I'm just, I know that reptilians eat humans. And what is one way to go against the church? Well, prevent births. Don't feed the lizards, in other words.
Who is one of the most powerful people on the face of the earth. There are very few that can be compared. Matthew Festing, or the head of the Knights of Malta, is one of the most powerful people in the world. More so than monarchs, more so than maybe even the Queen of England. So he puts someone else, and he puts in a cardinal, his good buddy, Cardinal Burke, who has been in the news as very corrupt with the Vatican Bank and with other things. And, this present Pope ignores everybody's sins. Matter of fact, when the big thing happened in America and all the Jesuits were ready to say, we're going to turn in the names of all of the Jesuits who were the pedophiles, and 20 of their names from the East Coast and all the cases, what happens? Francis says, nope, I'm putting a gag order on all of you. We're not even going to talk about pedophilia. until our next meeting of such and such and so and so, and at that point I'll tell you what I'm going to say. In other words, and then during this time, which nobody's getting prosecuted, he gets mad if you mention pedophilia. But this man is a murderer. I'm sorry to have to say it if you have never heard this before. Francis is a murderer. And he's a conscious murderer because he's into open borders. Open borders can only happen. Well, open borders basically invite the death of a lot of people that he calls migrants, but he doesn't really ever serve. But he does collect a bounty on each one of their heads. So this Pope Francis, who is a Jesuit, who's surrounded by a curia of Jesuits, and has his best Jesuit friend, the head of the Jesuits, has just put another person.
Let me say something about the wall again. I believe that, these people that are coming over, they are an infection, okay? But it's all by design. I don't have a problem with the wall, but what I've been trying to tell you all is that the wall is a joke. They have jump room technology. They have secret technologies. The Jesuits, the high Freemasons, we're talking top of the pyramid. They have jump room technology. They have this technology where they can just go in and out of portals. So, like I said, it's not that I don't like other people from other countries. It's just that right now what they're doing is by design, by flooding the system with these illegals.
His best buddy in charge of the Knights of Malta. Now that completes the trinity of the Jesuit takeover of the Catholic Church, which we predicted would happen, and we also predicted that would be the end of the Catholic Church. And basically the Catholic Church, as it is now, is just a hollow sounding a bell without a clangor. And he has basically rewritten every doctrine, every dogma. We complained about this as it happened. We've written the documents to show you that we're not making this up. Francis. So Francis has basically defied anything that he wanted to defy and support anything he wanted to support in absolute, I was going to say contradistinction, but in some cases he agrees with church doctrine, but then he goes overboard with it. He rewrote the Our Father. He rewrote the words attributed to Jesus Christ. He said that Jesus Christ was the exact same being as Muhammad, and who was the other one? Moses and Krishna. All the same being. This man is a nutcase, but he is not a nutcase in ruling the world with hegemony. He has already been invited to come to Astana, Kazakhstan, to head up this kind of Muslim World Council of Churches that the president of Kazakhstan, being so filthy rich with oil money, has built. And he said he would go there in 2017, but he did not because Donald Trump was elected, or else we predicted that would be the end of the Catholic Church as we know it. Because he has gutted it in every way. He's bled it to death, and he's a vampire. But now the news is that it wasn't about condoms that the chancellor of the Knights of Malta got fired. It was about what happened as soon as Cardinal Burke was put in charge of the Knights of Malta.
Now this is where we go into the WikiLeaks, is
yes.
Correct? So we did a little background, and I just wanted to say the articles that you've mentioned, I'll have those inside the link so people can go back and see. There is one thing, though. We had always thought that the white pope and the black pope would merge together in one person, Pope Francis, and we got that out on the internet really early. We believed that it was that truth that was spread around the world that kept him from making that in-your-face move.
Yes, because we predicted that he would take over personally the Knights of Malta if he was brave enough and if he wanted to become, instead of the white pope, somewhere in between the white and black pope, which is the gray pope. But now he put his best friend in charge of being the black pope, and he put his second best friend in charge of being the Knights of Malta. So it's basically the same thing. So he's in charge of all three. So in bending our words a little bit, I'd have to say still he is the gray pope, and he is really nasty. And the reason that WikiLeaks brought out this, make sure that at the bottom of the article you click on those other articles. It gives you a perspective, and then make sure to read the attachments, from which are the WikiLeaks attachments. They are specifically letters that they did not want to get out, letters from the Knights of Malta. Now, those letters demonstrate and prove exactly what I say. They take the richest people's money in the world and put them in trusts. And then they manage those trusts through the Vatican Bank and through other banks. And basically they're an insider group. So when Matthew Festing, and he would of course know who when the heads of the Knights of Malta is talking with people, he's talking with the richest people in the world. And they control entire nations. And so when they're about to do something, they tell the insider groups, and then those insider groups are able to tell some of the Knights of Malta that they wish to tell, depending upon your level of participation in your charity, in the trusts that you give over to the Knights of Malta and the bank, the Vatican Bank, to take care of. So in these letters are two things. The first thing is, Francis told Cardinal Burke when he took over the Knights of Malta to get rid of all the Freemasons. Okay, that's a joke. At least half of them, maybe 3/4 of them, are Freemasons, because they're into all of these groups, these secret societies. And the Freemasons were not friends of the Catholics in the past, but now it's not the way that it used to be. So if he says get rid of the Freemasons, that is absolutely ridiculous. Because the Jesuits rewrote the Freemasonic rites so that Jews and others could come into what was an underground Christian organization that was in contradistinction to the Papal See, to the Pope. Well, the Jesuits won the battle with the Knights of Malta, who became the Knights of the Hospitallers, who became the Knights of Malta. So Malta and Jesuits, no, they didn't like each other in the end. But now the Jesuits have dealt the final blow to the Knights of Malta, who hold the tradition of the Knights of Templars and the Knights of the Hospitallers rolled into one. That's money and charity. But they really don't do any charity. So Hospitallers are the charity, the Knights of Templars were the money of the Crusades, and later, which created the towns and the cities of Europe. And basically created then the finance of Europe, all except for usury. And when you get into usury and fiat currency and hard currency, then you get into the fact that only the Jews could do that. And so there were what were called the court Jew, who would be able to loan money with usury, with having to pay interest on it. And so when you look at this, it was a complete mess. So they created the Knights of Malta to handle